Luke Boyd laughed when the attorney reached the cargo lift. It wasn't a loud laugh. That would have been easier to hate. It was one short breath through his nose, followed by a glance at Connor, as if their father had slipped a private joke into the will for the two of them. Erin sat across from her brothers in a paneled office near downtown Tampa. Rain pressed against the windows. Her father's will lay open on the attorney's desk, beside 3 untouched glasses of water and a silver dish of peppermints. The attorney adjusted his glasses. To my daughter, Erin Isabella Boyd, I leave the real property located on North 13th Street in Ybor City, commonly known as the Boyd Warehouse, including all fixtures and equipment remaining therein. Luke leaned back in his chair. Read the equipment part again. The attorney looked at him. I haven't finished. We all know what's in there, Luke said. I just want to hear it. Stephanie, Luke's wife, sat beside him with one hand resting on her leather purse. She didn't laugh. She didn't tell him to stop either, the attorney continued. This bequest expressly includes the freight elevator and cargo lift installed within the warehouse, regardless of present condition. There it is, Luke said. Connor covered his mouth, but Erin saw the smile before he did. The attorney's name was Martin Hale. He'd handled Walter Boyd's estate years earlier, and he'd prepared company documents for Jack often enough to know how the family behaved when money was on the table. He waited until Luke settled. The warehouse is condemned, Luke said. The lift got red-tagged before Erin could drive. Luke, Connor murmured. What? It did. Erin kept her hands beneath the table. Her right thumbnail had already cut a small crescent into the skin beside her left thumb. She pressed harder because the sting gave her something definite to think about. The warehouse was the family's oldest property. That was how her father had always described it. Not valuable, not useful, just old. It stood near a neglected stretch of Ybor City, behind a chain-link fence bent inward by vines. Walter Boyd had run freight through it before Jack built Boyd Freight Storage into a company with newer buildings, newer trucks, and polished offices near the port. The old warehouse had been empty for years. Its roof leaked. Its loading doors were warped. The city had condemned the cargo lift in 2018 after an inspector found damaged controls, corroded cables, and standing water in the pit. Jack had never fixed it. Now he had left all of it to Erin. Martin turned the page. Luke received their father's controlling interest in Boyd Freight Storage. Connor received the next largest share. Together, they owned enough to make every important decision without asking Erin anything. They also inherited the mansion on Bayshore Boulevard. The house had 6 bedrooms, a curved staircase, a pool facing the water, and a garage larger than Erin's first apartment would probably be. Luke and Connor were to hold it jointly, though Luke was given the right to live there while the estate was settled. There were investment accounts, vehicles, company-owned storage yards, and insurance proceeds. Erin listened to each item move away from her. Then Martin reached the smaller gifts. Watches went to the brothers. Isabella's jewelry was divided into 2 boxes, one for Erin and one for Stephanie. Erin's box contained a silver chain, 3 pairs of earrings, and the plain gold wedding band her mother had stopped wearing during her final weeks in the hospital because her fingers had swollen. That ring was the only thing in the room Erin wanted. She slid it onto her finger. It was too loose, so she curled her hand around it. Martin finished reading and closed the will. For several seconds, no one spoke. The rain ticked against the glass. Connor looked at Erin. He had enough shame to avoid smiling now, though not enough to challenge Luke. You could probably sell the warehouse for the lot, he said. Luke shook his head. Nobody wants that lot. You don't know that. I know exactly what the company decided. We stopped carrying insurance on the interior equipment years ago. The environmental work alone could cost more than the land. Martin raised a hand. Before anyone makes assumptions, the estate still has title work to complete. Luke barely looked at him. The company's carried that building on its maintenance schedule since Grandpa ran things. That doesn't necessarily establish ownership. Luke's chair stopped moving. What does that mean? It means precisely what I said. Title work remains. Erin noticed the answer because Luke did. His face didn't change much, but his eyes stayed on Martin. Then Luke smiled again. Fine, do the title work. Either way, Erin can't afford to keep the place standing. He said it as if she weren't sitting 4 feet away. Erin drew her hand from under the table. Did Dad ever tell you why? Why what? Connor asked. Why he left it to me. Luke spread his hands. Maybe he thought you liked old things. Stephanie finally spoke. "Luke, that's enough." "No, I'm asking a real question," Aaron said. "Did he tell either of you?" Connor studied the carpet. Luke reached for one of the water glasses. "Dad didn't explain every decision. He explained yours. That was the company. We've worked there our whole adult lives. And the house, we need somewhere to manage the estate from. The company has an office." Luke set the glass down without drinking. "What do you want me to say, Aaron?" She wanted him to say their father had made a mistake. She wanted Martin to find another page. She wanted Jack to walk through the door and tell everyone they'd misunderstood. Instead, Luke nodded toward the closed will. "You got the warehouse. You got the broken cargo lift. That's what Dad left you." Connor rubbed his palms against his trousers. Stephanie looked toward the rain. Martin began gathering the papers. The meeting was over. 2 months earlier, before anybody knew Jack Boyd's heart was about to stop. Erin's life had been small in ways she didn't mind. She attended morning classes at a community college in Tampa and worked afternoons at a print shop. Most evenings, she came home to the Bayshore house, reheated something from the refrigerator, and found her father in one of 3 places. He was either in his office, at the kitchen island with company reports spread around him, or outside near the pool, talking on the phone while the water reflected pale blue light against his shirt. Luke came and went without knocking. Connor often arrived after dinner in a company pickup, hungry and irritated about something at work. Aaron heard about shipping delays, insurance rates, drivers quitting, clients threatening to leave, and storage contracts that Luke claimed would save the year. Nobody asked about the print shop unless Aaron mentioned it first. Jack did sometimes. "What did you make today?" he'd ask. 500 menus for a seafood place. "Any good?" They used a picture of a lobster that looks frightened. Maybe he saw the prices. That was how Jack talked when he wasn't working, quietly, almost under his breath, as if humor was something he might be charged for if he used too much. He wasn't an easy father. Aaron knew that before he died, and she didn't improve him afterward just because she missed him. He forgot plans, he answered messages late. He showed love through oil changes, paid bills, and groceries that appeared after Aaron mentioned once that they were out. He could sit beside her for 20 minutes without asking why she was upset, then leave a cup of tea near her elbow. Luke understood that language. Connor did too. Aaron had never been sure she did. The family wound had started long before the will. It had no single date. There wasn't one dinner where Jack chose his sons and rejected his daughter. There were years of small arrangements that always placed Aaron at the edge. Luke was the oldest and carried Jack's certainty. Connor was restless, charming when he wanted something, and quick to follow whichever man looked strongest in the room. They had grown up around the warehouse yards. By the time Aaron was old enough to remember family dinners, her brothers already talked to Jack like junior partners. Her mother, Isabella, had been the person who kept Aaron from feeling left behind. Isabella died in 2011. Aaron was 5, and memory had saved the wrong things. She remembered lotion beside a hospital bed. She remembered a paper cup of ice chips. She remembered her mother's fingernails, unpainted and ridged, resting against a white blanket. She didn't remember their final conversation. For years, Aaron had wondered if there had been one. Jack never spoke much about those weeks. When Aaron asked, he said Isabella had loved her. He said it with such force that it closed the subject. After Isabella died, Jack hired help for the house and returned to work. Luke was old enough to drive. Connor was old enough to be impatient with grief. Aaron learned not to ask either brother to sit with her when thunderstorms crossed the bay. They weren't cruel every day. That would have made the family easier to understand. Luke taught her to change a tire. Connor once drove across Tampa at midnight because her car battery died. They remembered her birthday usually. They bought expensive gifts selected by assistants or girlfriends. Then, at dinner, they spoke across her. The Sunday before Jack died, all 4 Boyds ate together at the mansion. Jack grilled grouper outside. Connor brought wine. Luke arrived late with Stephanie and spent 10 minutes taking a company call near the pool. Aaron carried plates to the patio table. Jack had left a folded newspaper beside his chair, open to a story about redevelopment near Ybor City. "You reading about the old neighborhood?" Aaron asked. Jack turned the paper face down. "Just checking what they're tearing up now. Connor says they're putting apartments everywhere. Connor says a lot of things." "I'm sitting right here," Connor called from the grill. Jack looked tired that evening. Aaron noticed it when he lowered himself into the chair and held the table for a moment. She almost asked if he was all right. Then Luke returned from his call and began arguing about a storage contract. The moment passed. During dinner, Luke said Erin should take business classes. She's taking design courses, Jack said. I know. I'm saying she should take something useful too. Erin put down her fork. Printing is useful. I didn't say it wasn't. You just did. Luke looked to Jack for support. Jack kept eating. Connor tried to soften it. He means long term. There's always work at the company. Doing what? You could start in billing. I don't want to work in billing. Luke sighed. That's the issue. You don't know what you want. And you did at 18? Yes. Stephanie gave him a look. No, you didn't. Luke ignored her. Jack wiped his mouth with his napkin. Leave her alone. It should have felt like a defense. Erin heard the exhaustion in it instead. Luke raised both hands. Fine. Conversation moved back to the company. By dessert, Erin had stopped trying to join. Later, while the others remained outside, she found Jack at the kitchen sink rinsing plates. You know we have a dishwasher, she said. It makes that grinding noise. Because you put food in it. He glanced at her. That sounds like something the dishwasher should prepare for. Erin took the plate from him and scraped it into the trash. On the counter lay a ring of keys. One was old brass, longer than the others, with a square head darkened at the edges. She picked it up. What's this one for? Jack dried his hands and took the keys from her. Old lock, helpful. It opened something old. At the warehouse? He looked at her then. The pause was brief. Erin remembered it only because of everything that followed. Maybe, he said. She waited for more. Jack slipped the keys into his pocket. You working tomorrow? After class. I'll be near your shop around 4. I could pick you up. For what? Nothing important. Thought we'd get coffee. Erin smiled. You don't drink coffee at 4. You complain about sleeping, then fall asleep watching television. I can complain without coffee. All right. 4. That was their last ordinary conversation. The next afternoon, Jack never came. At 3:47, Luke called Erin while she stood behind the print shop counter, trimming wedding invitations. His voice was flat and controlled. Dad collapsed at the office. The cutting machine continued humming behind her. What do you mean collapsed? They're taking him to Tampa General. Is he awake? Just get there. Jack was gone before Erin reached the hospital. The doctors said it was a sudden heart attack. Luke asked questions about timing and procedure. Connor stood with both hands on his hips, staring at the floor. Erin sat in a plastic chair with paper dust, still clinging to the sleeve of her black work shirt. She kept watching the hallway because some part of her believed Jack would arrive late. In the days afterward, Luke took control because control was what he knew. He called the funeral home. Connor handled company notices. Stephanie selected flowers and food. Erin chose the photograph for the memorial table, one of Jack standing beside Isabella in the early years of their marriage. He looked younger than Luke, the mansion filled with people who knew Jack from business. They told Erin he had been proud of her. None could say what he'd told them about her. After the funeral, Luke used Jack's office without asking. By December, company boxes had replaced Jack's papers. Stephanie began talking about repainting 2 upstairs rooms. Connor treated the refrigerator like a break room, arriving with employees and leaving takeout containers behind. Erin still lived there, but the house had changed ownership before anyone read the will. Luke called it practical. We don't know what the documents say yet, Erin told him one evening. We know how Dad set up the company, I mean the house. Luke stood behind Jack's desk, sorting envelopes. Nobody's putting you out. That wasn't an answer, and both of them knew it. At the January will reading, the documents gave Luke the answer he expected. Erin drove back to Bayshore alone. The rain had stopped. Water shone along the curb, and damp palm fronds dragged against the wall beside the driveway. Luke's vehicle was already parked near the front steps. Connor had taken a call outside the attorney's office and disappeared without saying goodbye. Inside, Erin went upstairs and found 2 cardboard boxes on her bed. Stephanie stood in the doorway. I asked Rosa to bring those up, she said. Not because you need to leave today. Luke told you to put boxes in here? He said it might help to start organizing. Erin touched one of the folded flaps. The room held 18 years of her life. Her clothes were in the closet. Her college books sat on the desk. A pale mark on the wall showed where Isabella's framed photograph had hung until Erin packed it after the funeral. Stephanie shifted her purse to the other shoulder. You can stay while you figure things out. How long? I don't know. Did Luke give you a date? No. Then why are there boxes on my bed? Stephanie looked down the hallway before answering. Luke wants to use this room as an office. Dad's office is downstairs. He wants that kept for company work. And mine? Aaron, I'm trying to be kind. Aaron looked at her. Then be clear. Stephanie's face tightened. She hadn't expected resistance from the youngest Boyd. Nobody did. A week, she said. Maybe 2. Aaron nodded. She packed in 6 days. Connor came by once and offered to pay the deposit on an apartment. Aaron refused. Luke left a check for $5,000 on the kitchen counter with her name written across an envelope. She left it there. The print shop owner rented her a small room behind her sister's house in Seminole Heights. It had a narrow bed, a rattling air conditioner, and enough floor space for 4 boxes if Aaron stacked them carefully. On the 7th morning, Aaron took the warehouse keys from Martin Hale's office. There were 9 keys on the ring. Most were new copies with white paper labels. The last was old brass with a square head darkened around the edges. Aaron turned it between her fingers. She'd seen it in her father's kitchen. Martin was watching her. Something wrong? No? You don't have to enter the building today. The city file lists several hazards. I want to see it. Take someone with you. She thought of Luke laughing. She thought of Connor studying the carpet. She thought of Jack taking the key from her hand and saying it opened something old. I'll be careful. The warehouse stood behind its bent fence on North 13th Street, larger and sadder than Aaron remembered. Weeds crowded the loading yard. Rust ran down the metal doors in dark lines. One upstairs window had been covered with plywood, and pigeons moved along the roof as if they owned it. A red city notice was fixed beside the entrance. Unsafe structure. No occupancy. Aaron unlocked the chain and pulled the gate open. It scraped across the pavement. Inside the warehouse, the air smelled of wet wood, dust, and old machine oil. Light entered through broken window panes. A section of ceiling had fallen near the loading area, leaving damp insulation across the concrete. Aaron stood just inside the door and listened. Water dripped somewhere beyond the main floor. A pigeon flapped above her. She ducked, swore, then laughed once because there was nobody there to hear it. The cargo lift occupied the center shaft between the warehouse floors. Its steel gate was closed. Red inspection tags hung from the control box. The lift car sat at ground level, wide enough for loaded pallets, with scarred wooden walls and a metal floor blackened by decades of freight. Someone had spray-painted scrap across the outer gate. Aaron stepped closer. A shallow pool of water had spread from the shaft toward a floor drain. She followed it to a broken pipe along the wall. Water gathered at a corroded joint, dropped steadily, and disappeared beneath a stack of rotten boards. If she left it, the floor would keep flooding. She found the main valve in a utility room. It wouldn't turn. Aaron wrapped both hands around it and pulled until rust broke loose with a sharp crack. The valve moved, the dripping slowed, then stopped. Her palms were orange with rust. She returned to the lift and looked at the condemned tag. Her father's name appeared near the bottom of the inspection record, signed in blue ink in 2018. Jack had known exactly how bad the lift was. He had known what the warehouse would cost. He had left it to her anyway. Aaron was still angry when she heard the sound. She'd leaned against the outer relay panel while wiping her hands on her jeans. Something inside the metal housing shifted with a dull knock. Not a loose electrical rattle. One solid knock, low and heavy. Aaron straightened. The relay panel was bolted beside the lift gate. Its paint was chipped, but one narrow line along the back edge looked cleaner than the rest. She ran her finger over it. The seam had been cut and closed again. On the lower corner, nearly hidden beneath a red inspection tag, was a keyhole. Aaron took the old brass key from the ring. It slid in without resistance. Aaron turned it. A small lock clicked behind the panel, but the door didn't open. She pulled once, then looked more closely. 4 ordinary bolts held the outer cover in place. The key had unlocked something behind them. She found a rusted toolbox in the utility room. Most of the sockets were missing, but there was an adjustable wrench and a flat screwdriver with black tape around the handle. The first bolt fought her. The second was worse. By the time all 4 lay on the floor, her wrists ached and sweat had dampened the collar of her shirt. The panel came away 3 inches. Old wires crossed the opening in stiff cloth sleeves. Aaron knew enough not to touch them. A smaller steel box had been welded behind the panel, fitted between the relay housing and the brick wall. Its lock was open. She pulled the door with 2 fingers. Inside was a small envelope and another brass key. This key was shorter, with a round head stamped with the number 4. Her name was written across the envelope, not typed, not written by Martin Hale or somebody in the estate office. Jack had written it. Erin sat down on the concrete. For a while, she didn't open the envelope. She held it in both hands and studied the familiar pressure marks in the ink. Her father had always pressed too hard with pens. His grocery lists left words embossed through 3 sheets of the kitchen notepad. The envelope had been sealed with clear tape along the flap. There was a dark smear near one corner, probably machine grease from his thumb. Erin broke the tape. The note inside was only 4 lines. Erin, keep the key with you. Don't give it to the company. Ask Timothy Fernandez about the day we poured the floor. Ask Catherine Myers what I promised your mother. Dad. She read it twice. Then she read the second line a third time. Don't give it to the company. That meant Luke. It also meant Connor, though Connor would object to being included. He'd say he only owned part of the company. He'd say Luke made the decisions. Connor had always been skilled at standing close enough to benefit and far enough away to deny responsibility. Erin turned the second key over in her palm. Nothing on the note explained what it opened. Nothing said why Jack had hidden it behind a condemned lift panel. He'd named 2 people and trusted her to know what to do next. She knew Catherine Myers. Everybody in the family did. Catherine had kept the books at Boyd Freight Storage for more than 20 years. She retired the previous summer after a lunch in the company conference room where Luke gave a speech about loyalty and presented her with a glass plaque. Erin had attended because Jack asked her to take photographs. Timothy Fernandez was less familiar. Erin remembered a man in work boots coming through the mansion's side door several years earlier, carrying a cardboard box of guava pastries and arguing with Jack about a fishing boat. She didn't know if that had been Timothy. She had no number for him. The company would. Erin folded the note along its original lines. Her first instinct was to call Luke. That instinct had been trained into her. Luke knew company people. Luke handled buildings. Luke would know which contractor had serviced the lift and where the old records were stored. Then she heard him in Martin's office. You got the warehouse. You got the broken cargo lift. She put the note and key in the inside pocket of her purse. Her phone showed 1 bar of service. She photographed the welded box, the panel, and every side of the envelope. She took pictures of the note beside the morning's date on her phone screen. Then she made a short video, beginning at the warehouse entrance and walking directly to the lift. It felt excessive. That was why she kept recording. At the print shop, customers sometimes arrived with damaged documents and asked if Erin could make the damage disappear. Coffee stains could be lightened, torn edges could be rebuilt, signatures could be moved, dates could be covered. Paper was convincing until someone asked where it came from. Erin filmed the key turning in the lock. She showed the empty envelope and the grease mark. She said the date and time aloud. Her voice sounded thin in the empty building. When she finished, she emailed the pictures and video to herself. Then she sent a second copy to a new account Luke didn't know about. Only after that did she search Timothy's name. Fernandez Vertical Service had a plain website with a Tampa address and a photograph of an old freight elevator. The company repaired commercial lifts, dumbwaiters, loading platforms, and hoists. A line beneath the phone number read, "Family operated since 1988. Erin called. A woman answered on the 4th ring. Fernandez Vertical. Hi, I'm trying to reach Timothy Fernandez. Who's calling? Erin Boyd. The woman was quiet. Jack's daughter? Yes. 1 second. There was no music on hold. Erin heard a chair scrape, then a muffled voice calling Timothy's name. A man came on the line. Erin? Yes. Is something wrong? She looked at the open panel. I'm at the old warehouse. What are you doing there alone? The question came so quickly that she looked toward the entrance. How do you know I'm alone? Because if Luke was with you, he'd have called me himself and told me what he wanted before saying hello. Erin almost smiled. I found your name. Where? Inside the freight lift panel. Timothy said nothing. I found a note from my dad, she continued. It says to ask you about the day you poured the floor. The silence changed. It was no longer confusion. Did you open anything else? No. Did you go into the pit? I don't even know how. Good. Don't learn. Is the main disconnect off? I turned off a water valve. That's not what I asked. I don't know. Step away from the controller. Aaron took 2 steps backward. I'm away. Go outside and wait by the gate. I can be there in 40 minutes. Can you tell me what this is about? Not on the phone. Why? Because Jack didn't put it in a text message, did he? No? Then I'm going to respect the trouble he took. He hung up before Aaron could ask another question. She replaced the relay cover without tightening the bolts. The envelope remained in her purse. She locked the gate behind her and waited in the car. 40 minutes became 52. A white service van pulled up with Fernandez Vertical Service painted in dark blue across the side. The rear bumper was bent. Several lengths of pipe were secured to the roof rack with orange straps. Timothy climbed out wearing gray work clothes and heavy boots. His hair had gone almost entirely white, but his eyebrows were still dark. A pair of reading glasses hung from his shirt pocket. He opened the van's rear doors. "Show me the city notice first," he said. Aaron led him to the entrance. He read every line, including the faded inspection number near the bottom. Then he photographed it with a small digital camera instead of his phone. "You carry a camera? I drop phones. That seems like a reason to carry fewer things. It's a reason to carry cheaper things." He put on a hard hat and handed Aaron another. "This doesn't make the building safe," he said. "It makes your head slightly less available to falling objects." She adjusted the strap. Timothy unlocked a metal case and removed a voltage tester. Inside the warehouse, he went straight to the electrical room. He checked the main disconnect, traced conduit along the wall, and opened a breaker cabinet. Aaron followed until he held up one hand. "Stay there. You told me to show you what I found. I know where it is." That answer stopped her. Timothy tested the lift controls. The device chirped once. He threw a large disconnect handle down, locked it with his own padlock, and attached a yellow tag bearing his name. Only then did he approach the relay panel. Aaron removed the loose bolts and showed him the hidden box. He looked at the open lock. "You used the square brass key?" "Yes." "Still have it?" "Yes." "And the other one?" She touched her purse. "With me?" "Keep it that way. You already know what it opens." Timothy looked into the box, though there was nothing left inside. "I know what Jack intended it to open. That isn't an answer. No, it isn't." He crouched beside the panel and examined the welds. One corner of his mouth pulled down. "What?" "Moisture got behind here." "Is that bad?" "Moisture is always bad around old controls." "I mean, for the box. The box is fine. My weld is uglier than I remember. You put this here?" Timothy stood. "Last April, 1 month after Aaron turned 18. She didn't make the connection yet. She only heard the date and remembered her father carrying the old brass key." "What did he tell you?" "That he needed a secure compartment." "For what?" "He didn't tell me what he planned to place inside the outer box." "Outer box?" Timothy's gaze moved toward the lift gate. Aaron noticed. "What's the inner box?" "I didn't say inner. You called this the outer box." He took off his glasses and cleaned them on his shirt. Timothy had promised Jack that he wouldn't open what wasn't his. He had also promised to help Aaron if she came with the key. Those promises had sounded simple when Jack stood beside him in the warehouse 7 months earlier. Jack had been alive then, impatient and solid, holding a flashlight while Timothy complained about the condition of the pit. Now Jack was dead, and his daughter stood in front of Timothy, wearing a borrowed hard hat and rust across both palms. He put his glasses back on. "Your father asked me to make 2 compartments." Aaron waited. "I built this one first," he said. "Then we worked below." "In the elevator pit?" "Yes." "What's in the second compartment?" "I don't know." "You expect me to believe that?" "I don't care what you believe. I'm telling you what I know." The sharpness surprised her. Timothy turned toward the lift. He unlocked the steel landing gate with a service key from his own ring. The gate rolled aside with a metal scrape that echoed through the warehouse. The lift car remained still at floor level. "Can we get below it?" Aaron asked. "Not today? Why not?" "Because the lift is sitting over the pit. The manual lowering system has seized. The electrical controls are unsafe. The cables haven't been inspected in years, and there's water where water shouldn't be." "How did you get down there in April?" "We moved the car, then move it again." Timothy looked at her. "With what?" "Whatever you used last time. Equipment, 2 workers, temporary power, a pump. Your father paying the bill? I can pay." "How much do you have?" "That's not your business. It becomes my business if you ask me to put men under several tons of condemned machinery." Aaron folded her arms. The gesture was so much like Jack that Timothy had to look away. He walked to the edge of the lift car and shone a flashlight through a narrow gap. Water reflected below. The roof leak fed the shaft, he said. Could be 3 feet down there, maybe more. Can you pump it out? After we stop more water from coming in? I shut off the broken pipe. That handles one source. He pointed upward. Light showed through a damaged section of roofing above the shaft. Rain comes straight down the guide rails. Your landing doors on the upper floor may be open too. Can you inspect them? Yes. Today? Timothy studied her for a moment. You planning to keep this place? I've owned it for less than a day. That wasn't my question. Erin looked across the warehouse. The sensible answer was no. She had no money for structural work. She had classes in the mornings, shifts at the print shop, and a rented room barely large enough for her boxes. The warehouse had a condemned notice at the door and enough standing water to breed its own weather. Her father had left her a problem. He had also hidden a note inside that problem, named 2 people, and told her not to trust the company. I'm not walking away before I know what he did, she said. Timothy nodded once. That's an answer. They climbed the stairs to the upper floor. Several treads were soft with rot. Timothy marked them with orange paint from his tool bag. On the second landing, one lift gate stood open by ½ an inch. He closed it, secured it with wire, and wrote the time in a small notebook. The roof damage was worse from above. Rain had warped the boards around an old vent. One section sagged near the shaft. We can cover it temporarily, Timothy said. Not with hardware store plastic. Wind will tear that off and carry it to Orlando. What will it cost? For today, nothing. I don't want a favor. That's good. Favors make people stupid about invoices. He took measurements. My crew has a small roofing job tomorrow morning. I can send 2 people here afterward with a proper tarp and battens. I'll charge materials. And the lift, I inspect first. You get someone to look at the structure, then we talk about moving the car. You're still avoiding the question. Which one? What did my father put under it? I told you I don't know. What did he say when you built the compartment? Timothy closed his notebook. He said you might come looking. Erin's throat tightened, but she kept her voice level. Did he say when? No. Did he know he was going to die? Not that I saw. He spent half that day complaining about people who replaced good machinery because it had ugly paint. A man planning to die usually has something more interesting to complain about. Then why hide anything? You'll have to ask him that the hard way. They went back downstairs. At the lift, Timothy examined the second brass key without taking it from Erin's hand. The number 4 was worn more heavily on one side. Deposit key, he said. For a bank? Not this one. Then what? It belonged to an old lockbox system your grandfather used here. Walter numbered everything. Tool cages, invoice cabinets, truck key boxes. Where's number 4? It was removed years ago. Removed to where? That's what we need to find out. Erin thought of the note's second name. Did Catherine know about this? I don't know what Catherine knew. Jack kept different people holding different corners. That sounds like him? Yes, it does. Timothy replaced the panel and tightened the bolts himself. Before closing it, he photographed the empty compartment. He asked Erin to hold that morning's newspaper beside the opening while he took another picture. You thought my video was excessive, she said. I didn't see your video. I could tell. Keep the original note somewhere dry. Don't carry it around. Where? Not the mansion? I don't live there anymore. Timothy paused with the wrench in his hand. Since when? Today, officially. 6 days in practice. Luke told you to leave? He gave me 2 weeks. I used 1. Timothy tightened the last bolt harder than necessary. Your father had bad timing, he said. That's one way to say it. It's the polite way. He packed his tools, then wrote the number of a structural engineer on the back of his business card. Tell her I sent you. Ask for an initial safety inspection. Nothing more. Don't let anyone discuss demolition until you know what's holding up what. Why would they discuss demolition? Because condemned buildings make people nervous, and nervous people like empty lots. At the gate, he stopped. One more thing. Don't call Boyd Freight for records yet. That was my first idea. I know. How? You're Jack's daughter, and you think asking a direct question should produce a useful answer. It should. It often produces a warning. He climbed into his van. Erin stood beside the open gate. Will you come back? When the roof crew gets here. That isn't what I asked. Timothy rested one arm on the window. Yes, he said. I'll come back. After he drove away, Erin sat in her car and called Catherine Myers. The number went to voicemail. Catherine, this is Aaron Boyd. I found something Dad left at the old warehouse. He wrote your name in a note. He said I should ask what he promised my mother. She stopped because her voice had begun to shake. She took a breath. Please call me before you speak to Luke. Erin ended the call, removed her father's note from her purse, and read it once more. Then she opened the new email account on her phone and changed the password. She put the phone away and walked back through the gate. The warehouse looked different now. It wasn't less ruined. If anything, Timothy had pointed out problems she hadn't noticed. Still, it no longer felt empty. Someone had expected her to stand there. That fact brought comfort for about 10 seconds. Then it became another question. Erin spent the rest of the afternoon clearing wet boards from the drain. She made 3 piles, wood, metal, and things too rotten to identify. She found a push broom with half its bristles missing and swept a path between the entrance and the lift. At 5, Catherine called. Are you somewhere private? She asked. Erin looked around the warehouse. Very. You shouldn't be in that building alone. You're the second person to tell me that today. Then perhaps you should listen to one of us. Did Luke call you? No. Has he called you? Not since the will reading. Catherine let out a quiet breath. What exactly did Jack write? Erin read the line about Isabella. Catherine didn't answer. Catherine? I'm here. What did he promise her? Not over the phone. Timothy said the same thing. Then Timothy has retained some sense. You both keep saying that, but nobody will tell me what's happening. I'll meet you tomorrow morning. I have class. After class. I work after class. Catherine named a diner near the old company offices. Noon. I'll buy you lunch, and you can be 20 minutes late to work for once in your life. You don't know if I'm ever late. I processed your payroll for 2 summers. Erin had no answer to that. Bring the note, Catherine said. Timothy told me not to carry it around. Then bring a copy. Do you know about the other key? What other key? The surprise sounded real. A brass key marked 4. No, don't tell me more on the phone. The line disconnected. Erin stared at the screen. Jack had placed 2 names on one piece of paper, but neither person seemed to know the other's part. Before leaving, she photographed the warehouse meter and every door. She looped the chain twice through the gate and pressed the padlock until it caught. At the rented room, she spread her father's note on a clean towel. The room belonged to Rosa Benton's older sister, Denise, who worked nights at a hospital billing office and preferred tenants who didn't make noise. Denise had cleared 1 kitchen cabinet and 1 refrigerator shelf for Erin. Their first conversation had covered rent, parking, laundry days, and the importance of not leaving wet towels on wooden furniture. Denise didn't ask why an 18-year-old from Bayshore Boulevard needed a room behind her house. That was one reason Erin liked her. Erin placed the note in a plastic sleeve from the print shop. She copied it at high resolution, printed 3 color copies, and locked the original inside a small cash box beneath her clothes. At 11 that night, she woke to her phone vibrating against the floor. Luke's name filled the screen. She let it ring twice before answering. Hello? What are you doing at the warehouse? Erin sat up. How do you know I was there? Somebody saw the gate open. Who? That doesn't matter. It matters to me. Luke sounded tired, rather than angry. That made him harder to read. The property is dangerous, he said. You can't just walk around inside. It's mine. The building may be yours. The company still has obligations connected to the site. What obligations? Old maintenance records, utility accounts. There could be insurance exposure. Martin said title work wasn't finished. That has nothing to do with safety. Then why did you call at 11? Because I've been dealing with Dad's mess since before sunrise. Erin heard paper moving on his end. He was probably in Jack's office. For a moment, she could picture him under the green desk lamp, one hand pressed against his forehead. You could have asked if I was all right, she said. I'm asking now. No. You're asking what I did. Luke was quiet. Were contractors there? 1. Who? Someone checking the lift. Erin. What? Don't spend money on that building. It's my money. You don't have enough to waste. The words landed close to what she already feared. Luke softened his tone. I'm trying to save you from getting buried in costs. Dad should have handled the place years ago, but he didn't. Now you're holding the problem. He chose to leave it to me. That doesn't make it a good choice. Was the company planning to demolish it? We talked about options. When? Several times? With Dad? Yes. What did he say? Luke hesitated. He kept putting it off. Why? He was sentimental. Jack had never been sentimental about machinery. Aaron knew that much. Luke continued before she could press him. I'll come by tomorrow. There's a standard liability form you need to sign. Send it to Martin. It isn't an estate document. Then email it. I'd rather explain it. Email it. She ended the call before he could refuse. A minute later, the form arrived. The subject line read, Old Wybor Site Access. Aaron opened the attachment. The first page said, Boyd Freight Storage wasn't responsible for injury, loss, structural failure, exposure to hazardous materials, or damage arising from entry onto the property. The second page was stranger. It authorized the company, its employees, and its contractors to enter the warehouse for inspection, maintenance, removal of equipment, or any action considered necessary to protect company interests. The permission had no ending date. Aaron read it again. Luke called the document a liability waiver. It also gave him a key without requiring him to ask for one. She forwarded it to Martin Hale with one sentence. Should I sign this? Then she turned off her phone. The roof crew arrived shortly after noon the next day, which meant Aaron missed Catherine at the diner. She'd planned to meet Catherine first, but the structural engineer moved her appointment forward. Then Timothy called to say his crew was already driving toward Ybor. By the time Aaron left class, 3 people were waiting at the warehouse gate. The engineer introduced herself as Meera Patel. She wore steel-toed boots, dark work trousers, and a white hard hat covered with faded inspection stickers. She carried a tablet and a long flashlight. Timothy stood beside his van with 2 workers unloading rolled membrane and wooden battens. You're late, he said. I told you I had class. You own a building now. Buildings are rude about schedules. Meera looked from Aaron to Timothy. Can we get inside before the weather changes? Clouds had gathered over Tampa, thick and low. Aaron unlocked the gate. The inspection took nearly 2 hours. Meera checked columns, roof beams, stairs, walls, and the cracked concrete near the loading doors. She used a small hammer to tap areas of visible damage. Aaron followed with a notebook until Meera told her she was writing down the wrong things. What should I write? Decisions. I'll give you the measurements. The roof crew worked above the lift shaft. Their footsteps sent grit falling onto the empty car. Meera found rot near 2 upstairs windows and a damaged beam beside the southeast loading door. She found surface rust on the main steel supports, but no buckling. The concrete floor had settled near the rear wall, though not enough to suggest immediate failure. At the cargo lift, she read the old inspection tag. This equipment stays out of service. I know, I need you to say it. The equipment stays out of service. No passengers, no freight, no testing the controls. Understood. Meera aimed her light into the gap beside the lift. Water in the pit? Timothy thinks so. I don't think so, Timothy called from the ladder. I know so. How much? Can't measure until we get access. Meera looked up toward the temporary roofwork. Stop the inflow, pump it, inspect the pit walls. Then decide whether the car can be secured overhead. Aaron wrote that down. What about the whole building? Meera glanced across the main floor. It's neglected. That's different from falling down. The distinction mattered more than Aaron wanted it to. What would make it safe enough to work in? Temporary shoring at the loading door. Replace damaged stair treads. Close the upper floor except for supervised work. Electrical inspection. Pest removal. Drainage. How much? Meera named a range that began above Aaron's savings and ended somewhere she couldn't reach. Aaron lowered her notebook. That's only to make it safe? That's not restoration. That's stabilization. Timothy climbed down. She doesn't need everything at once. Meera looked at him. Water and structure first. I know. I'm saying it for the owner. Aaron heard the word and felt something settle. Owner. Nobody at the mansion had used it. Luke had called her the person holding the problem. Meera called her the owner because Aaron had opened the gate. A black sport utility vehicle pulled into the loading yard. Luke parked beside Timothy's van. Stephanie sat in the passenger seat. She remained there while Luke got out carrying a folder. He wore company clothes, navy trousers, and a white shirt with the Boyd Freight logo above the pocket. He looked around at the open vans, the ladder, and the roof membrane. What's all this? An inspection? Aaron said. You hired people already? Mira stepped forward. Mira Patel, structural engineering. Luke shook her hand automatically. Luke Boyd. Boyd Freight owns the adjacent operating assets. Good to meet you. His eyes moved to Timothy. I thought you retired from this equipment. I never retired. You stopped servicing it. Your father stopped ordering service. Luke looked at the temporary roof covering. Who approved that work? Erin closed her notebook. I did. Stephanie got out of the vehicle. She wore cream-colored trousers that stayed somehow untouched by the muddy yard. She gave Erin a small smile. We wanted to make sure you were okay. I'm okay. Luke held out the folder. I brought the waiver. I read it. It's routine. It gives your company unlimited access. For emergency maintenance. It doesn't say emergency. Luke looked toward the workers. Both had stopped pretending not to listen. Can we talk inside? No. Erin, the building's unsafe. You said so. Stephanie pressed her lips together. Luke lowered the folder. Fine. The company has equipment and records in there. What equipment? Old shelving. Possibly archived files. The place was empty. You've inspected every room? Not yet. That's my point. We need access to determine what belongs to the corporation. Timothy came closer, wiping roofing sealant from his gloves. The lift belongs to the building. I didn't say it didn't. You looked at me when you said equipment. Luke's jaw tightened. This is a family matter, Tim. Then don't put a company logo on it. Erin stepped between them before Luke could answer. Send Martin a list of anything the company thinks it owns. Martin doesn't run company operations. He handles the estate. The estate is separate. Good. Then you agree the company and the warehouse aren't the same thing. Luke stared at her. He hadn't expected her to notice the contradiction. More importantly, he hadn't expected her to use it. Stephanie touched his arm. We're not here to argue. She turned to Erin. Luke's worried that you'll spend everything trying to save a building nobody uses. I haven't asked him for money. No, but this isn't just about money. You could get hurt. Someone working here could get hurt. Then everybody starts pointing at the family and the company. There it is, Timothy said. Stephanie's eyes moved to him. Excuse me? The actual concern. Luke stepped forward. Don't speak to my wife like that. I spoke in her direction. She can decide if it reached her. Timothy, Erin said. He walked back toward his van. The first drops of rain struck the roof membrane. Mira handed Erin her card. I'll send the written report tonight. Until the temporary shoring is installed, keep everyone away from the southeast loading door. Luke watched the exchange. What report? Mine, Erin said. You should copy the company. No. If there are structural hazards, we need notice. You already knew there were hazards. Your waiver lists 6 of them. Luke's face went still. For a second, Connor's absence became obvious. Connor would have interrupted by then. He would have made a joke or suggested lunch. Without him, Luke had no soft place to put his anger. He held out the folder again. Erin didn't take it. You're making this harder than it needs to be, he said. For who? Stephanie looked toward the warehouse entrance. Did you find something in there? The question came gently, too gently. Erin felt the copied note inside her backpack. She saw Timothy pause beside his van without turning around. Rot, Erin said. Water, pigeons. Stephanie waited. That's all? That's enough for 2 days. Luke tucked the folder under his arm. You have until Friday to sign the waiver. What happens Friday? We review our options. My options or yours. He didn't answer. Luke opened Stephanie's door, then walked around to the driver's side. The sport utility vehicle backed out slowly. Stephanie watched Erin through the window until the gate blocked her face. When they were gone, Timothy returned. You lied badly, he said. I told the truth. You selected truths badly. Did she believe me? No. Mira closed her equipment case. Whatever this is, keep it away from my report. It has nothing to do with your report, Erin said. Good. She left before the rain strengthened. Timothy's crew secured their tools. The temporary roof covering held. Water ran toward the gutters instead of down the lift shaft. Erin checked her phone. There were 4 missed calls from Catherine and 1 email from Martin. Do not sign. Please call me immediately. Beneath it was a second email, sent 12 minutes later. Erin showed Timothy. He read both messages and returned the phone. They're looking now, he said. For what? The same answer you are. Erin took the phone back. How fast can we get under the lift? Timothy looked toward the shaft. Not before shoring goes in. Mira said that was for the loading door. That's the urgent spot. I want the upper landing checked too. If I raise the car, I need to know the wall holding its rail brackets won't come with it. How long? 2 days if Mira approves the plan. Luke gave me until Friday. Luke gave himself until Friday. That's different. A car horn sounded outside the gate. Catherine Myers sat behind the wheel of a blue sedan, holding one hand on the horn. Aaron ran through the rain and opened the gate. Catherine parked near the warehouse door. She got out wearing a clear plastic rain cover over her gray hair and carrying a canvas grocery bag against her chest. "You missed lunch," she said. "I know. I'm sorry. I ordered your food before you arrived." I sat there looking like a woman whose family had forgotten her birthday. I called. After 20 minutes. There were contractors here. Catherine looked past Aaron and saw Timothy. Of course there were. Timothy came to the entrance. "Hello, Kathy." "Don't call me Kathy. You still mad about 1999? "It wasn't 1999. "Then I don't remember what you're mad about. You submitted 6 invoices without purchase orders. Jack paid them." "I know. I had to create the purchase orders." Aaron looked between them. "You two know each other." Catherine removed the plastic cover from her hair. "Your father enjoyed making careful people work with difficult people." Timothy pointed at himself. "Which am I?" Catherine walked into the warehouse without answering. She stopped inside and took in the broken windows, damp concrete, and temporary lights Timothy's crew had hung near the lift. "I haven't been here in 14 years, she said. "Why not?" Aaron asked. "Because the last time I came, your father had me count equipment in August with no working air conditioning." "That sounds like him." "Yes." Catherine's eyes rested on the relay panel. "Show me the note." Aaron opened the photograph on her phone. Catherine read it and closed her eyes briefly. "He said he'd leave instructions," she murmured. "You knew?" "I knew he was preparing something. I didn't know where he put it. What did he prepare?" Catherine glanced toward Timothy. He gathered his tools. "I'll check the roof," he said. "You don't have to leave," Aaron told him. "Yes, I do." He took his crew upstairs. Catherine waited until their footsteps moved away. "Your mother made Jack promise that you'd always have ground of your own." The sentence was so ordinary that Aaron first thought she'd misheard it. What ground? She didn't name a parcel. She was worried about what would happen after she was gone. "To me, to all of you, but especially you." "Why especially me?" Catherine set the grocery bag on a dry wooden crate. Luke was 18 when Isabella died. He was already working summers with Jack. Connor was 15 and determined to follow Luke everywhere. You were 5. Aaron watched rain strike the open doorway. Catherine continued. "Isabella knew Jack. She loved him, but she knew him. Work solved every problem he understood. After she got sick, he worked more because he couldn't solve that one. He took care of me." "Yes, he did." The quick agreement left no room for Aaron to defend him. He also assumed the family would hold together because it had always been together, Catherine said. "Your mother didn't share that assumption. What exactly did he promise?" "I wasn't in the hospital room," Jack told me afterward. He said, "I promised Bella that Aaron would always have ground of her own, somewhere nobody could vote her out of." Those were his words. Aaron looked down at Isabella's wedding band. It still hung loose on her finger. Why would he tell his bookkeeper? Because 2 years earlier, he'd created a land trust. Catherine reached into the grocery bag and removed a thick file folder. Its label read, "Boyd Legacy, Personal." "Is that it?" "No." "These are my notes." She opened the folder on the crate. Inside were copies of invoices, certified mail receipts, and pages from old accounting ledgers. A yellow note in Jack's handwriting said, "Personal, not BFS." Catherine tapped it. Boyd Freight paid some warehouse expenses over the years. Taxes were sometimes advanced from the company operating account when Jack was traveling. I recorded every payment as money owed by Jack personally. Why? Because the company didn't own the land. Aaron stared at her. "Luke says it does. Luke assumes it does." Martin wasn't sure. Martin has the will and whatever was kept with the estate records. This was handled separately. Catherine turned to a ledger page from 2003. The entry showed a transfer from Walter Boyd's estate to Jack. Beside the property description was one handwritten word. Personal. Walter owned the parcel before the company existed, Catherine said. When he died, it went to Jack, not Boyd Freight. Then why did the company maintain it? Because it used the warehouse. Later, because Jack told us to keep the taxes current and the fence standing. That made everyone think it belonged to the company. I told Luke twice that maintenance wasn't ownership. When? Once during an insurance review. Once when he wanted to use the land as security for a loan. What did Dad say? That the site wasn't available. Aaron touched the edge of the ledger. When was that? 3 years ago. And Luke let it go. Jack was alive. The words sat between them. Aaron looked toward the stairs where Timothy had disappeared. What happened to the land trust? In 2009, Jack signed papers moving the parcel into the Boyd Legacy Land Trust. The trust could hold title without putting the property on the company books. Who owned the trust? That isn't quite how it works. Who got the land? The trust document left the final beneficiary unnamed. Jack retained control while he was alive. Why leave it unnamed? He said he wasn't ready. For 16 years? Catherine corrected her. The trust was created 16 years ago. Isabella's promise came 14 years ago. Aaron heard the distinction. Jack had created the trust before Isabella died, but the promise later gave it a purpose. Did he ever name someone? Catherine placed one finger on the final receipt in her folder. Last April, he asked me for the original trust file. I gave it to him. A week later, he brought me a sealed envelope and told me to send it by certified mail to a private attorney in Clearwater. What was inside? I didn't open it. But I know the cover sheet named it as a trust amendment. I know he waited until 1 month after you turned 18. Aaron stopped breathing for a moment. Why wait? He wanted you to be legally able to receive and control whatever he gave you. What did the amendment say? I never saw the signed pages. Then where are they? Catherine looked at the lift. I hoped you were about to tell me. The temporary shoring went in the next morning. Mira approved 2 steel supports near the upper landing and a third beneath a damaged section of roof framing. Timothy brought a portable pump, lifting equipment, fresh cable clamps, and 2 workers who spoke to him with the patience of people related to their employer. One was his adult daughter, Elena Fernandez. She managed the service schedule and had answered Aaron's first call. The other was a longtime technician named Paul Denton. Timothy placed Aaron near the entrance with instructions not to cross the yellow line around the shaft. You said I could watch. You can watch from there. That's 20 feet away. You have excellent young eyes. The pump hose ran from the pit, across the warehouse, and out to a storm drain after Mira confirmed where the water could safely go. Muddy water surged through it. They worked for nearly 4 hours. The lift car couldn't move under its own power. Timothy and Paul secured it with an overhead hoist, raised it slowly, then locked it above the first floor with steel safety supports. Every movement produced a groan from the old guide rails. Aaron stood with both fists closed. Elena watched the gauges. Cables holding, she called. Secondary support, Timothy answered. Paul fixed the second support into place. Only after all 3 inspected the car did Timothy remove the barrier from the pit entrance. A metal ladder descended into darkness. The air rising from below smelled like rust and river mud. Timothy put on a harness. I'm going first. I'm coming down. No. The note sent me here. The note did not make you trained in confined space entry. It's my lift. That means you get the bill. It doesn't make you useful. Elena hid a smile. Timothy clipped his safety line and descended. Paul monitored him from above. A portable fan pushed fresh air into the pit. His flashlight moved across the concrete walls. Floor's intact, he called. North drain is blocked. Guide shoe is badly corroded. Aaron leaned as far forward as the barrier allowed. What about the compartment? Timothy's light stopped near the rear wall. During the work in April, the pit floor had already been cracked around an old drain plate. Jack had asked him to widen one section and pour a new concrete pad. They'd set a steel document box beneath a removable floor plate, then brushed the new work with dirty water so it wouldn't stand out. Now the disguise held. Timothy scraped mud from a square plate near the rear guide rail. Found it. Aaron gripped the barrier. Can I come down now? No. He cleared the edges. A small round lock appeared beneath the mud. Send me key 4. Aaron removed the brass key from the chain around her neck. Elena lowered it in a small canvas bucket. Timothy fitted it into the lock. It turned. The floor plate lifted on a concealed hinge. Beneath it sat a black metal case wrapped in thick waterproof material. Timothy checked the opening before touching it. No wires, no pressure switch. Just Jack making me crawl through mud for family paperwork. He lifted the case and secured it in the bucket. Elena raised it. Aaron stared at the black case resting on the warehouse floor. It was no larger than a carry-on suitcase. Its metal corners were scratched, though the waterproof wrapping remained sealed. Catherine arrived while Timothy was climbing out of the pit. She carried her personal file and a pair of reading glasses. "I came as soon as Aaron called," she said. Timothy stepped over the barrier. "You missed the hard part. I've known you since 1994. "I doubt that." Mira cleared a folding work table near the entrance. Aaron wiped it twice before setting down the case. Timothy photographed the wrapping. Catherine photographed Aaron cutting it open. Inside were 2 sealed document packets and a white envelope. The first packet was marked Original Recorded Deed. The second read Boyd Legacy Land Trust. Aaron touched the white envelope last. "Aaron, after you find the floor," was written across it. Her hands began to shake. Catherine steadied the packet while Aaron opened the deed. The paper was old and cream-colored, with a recorder's stamp from 1971. It named Walter Boyd as owner of the North 13th Street parcel. Attached pages showed the transfer through Walter's estate to Jack in 2003. Catherine opened the trust packet. The first document was dated 2009. Jack Boyd had transferred the same parcel into the Boyd Legacy Land Trust. Behind it lay a shorter document dated April of the previous year. First Amendment to Boyd Legacy Land Trust. Aaron read until she found her name. The amendment named Aaron Isabella Boyd as sole beneficiary upon Jack's death. It gave her control of the warehouse parcel, its buildings, fixtures, access rights, and any proceeds from lease or sale. She read the paragraph again. Then she handed it to Catherine because the words had stopped holding their shape. "Does this mean what I think?" Catherine read the signature page and notary seal. "It means your father didn't leave you only a condemned building." "What did he leave?" "The land under it." "All of it?" Catherine turned through the attachments. All 2.3 acres. Aaron looked around at the wet walls, the rusted lift, and the loading floor she'd spent 2 days sweeping. Luke and Connor had taken the mansion. They had taken the company and everything carrying the Boyd name in clean letters. The broken cargo lift had held a different history. Aaron picked up the envelope addressed to her and slid one finger beneath the flap. The letter began without an apology. "Aaron, if you're reading this, Tim got the car raised, Catherine kept her records, and you paid attention when it would have been easier not to. The warehouse land was your grandfather's. He owned it before I formed the company, and he gave it to me personally. I kept it separate because a company can fail, change hands, borrow too much, or let the wrong person speak for everyone. Ground is different if you protect it. Your mother understood that better than I did. When she was dying, she made me promise you'd always have ground of your own. She worried the boys would inherit my place in the business and expect you to accept whatever place they left for you. I told her they loved you. She said love doesn't help much when somebody else controls the locks. She was right to make me promise. I waited until you were 18. In April, I amended the trust so the land would pass to you alone. The will leaves you the building and everything fixed inside it. The trust gives you the ground beneath it. Neither works properly without the other. I hid these papers because company files have too many hands in them. I told Martin only that separate title records existed. He can help begin the search, but use your own real estate lawyer before you sign, sell, lease, or let the company remove anything. You may decide the warehouse is too much. That decision belongs to you. Don't let anybody turn urgency into permission. I'm sorry I left you to find this instead of saying it plainly. I kept thinking there would be time. Dad." Aaron remained at the work table after everyone else had finished reading. Water dripped from Timothy's boots. The portable fan hummed near the open pit. Outside, a truck changed gears on the wet street. Catherine placed the letter beside the trust amendment. "He knew Luke had asked about the land," she said. "Asked to borrow against it," Aaron replied. "Yes. Why didn't Dad tell me then?" "He may have believed telling you would pull you into a fight before you could control the property. He could have told me after my birthday." Catherine didn't defend him. Timothy removed his gloves. "Jack was good at making something secure," he said. "He was less good at making it simple." Aaron folded the letter. Her father had explained what he'd protected. He hadn't explained why Luke needed the warehouse quickly enough to send a waiver the night after the will reading. "I need to know what they plan to do with the site," she said. Catherine closed her file. "Connor will tell you if Luke talks over him long enough. That's your advice? It worked for me for years." The original documents went into Catherine's canvas bag. Aaron didn't want them at the rented room, and the warehouse was no place for paper. Catherine had a safe deposit box large enough to hold the packets until Aaron hired a lawyer. Timothy kept copies of his photographs. Aaron kept copies of everything else. They agreed not to contact the company. By the time Aaron reached her car, Luke had left 2 messages. The first asked her to call. The second said he and Stephanie wanted to discuss a practical solution. She didn't answer until that evening. Luke suggested breakfast at the mansion the next morning. Aaron refused. They settled on the patio at 2 in the afternoon, after her shift at the print shop. Stephanie met Aaron at the side door. "We could have done this inside," she said. "I like the patio." The January air was mild, and the pool pump ran with a low mechanical hum. Jack's grill remained where he'd left it. Someone had replaced the newspaper basket beside his chair with a large ceramic planter. Luke sat at the table with Connor. A folder lay between them. Connor stood when Aaron approached, then seemed unsure whether to hug her. Aaron took the empty chair across from Luke and saved him the decision. Luke opened the folder. "We're prepared to buy your interest in the warehouse." "My interest?" "The structure, fixtures, and equipment you received under the will. You called it a liability 2 days ago." "It is. That doesn't mean we can't help you out of it." Stephanie sat beside him. "We talked through what it would cost to make the building usable," she said. "It doesn't make sense for you." "You haven't seen Mira's report." "We've seen older reports," Luke said. "Roof replacement, electrical work, environmental testing, lift removal. You could spend hundreds of thousands and still have an obsolete warehouse. The lift doesn't have to be removed." Luke looked at her more carefully. "Who told you that?" "A mechanic." "Tim?" "Yes. He'll keep that machine alive until it kills him." Connor gave a small smile. "That's true." Aaron looked at the folder. "What are you offering?" Luke slid 1 page across the table. The purchase price appeared in the middle. $40,000. Aaron read it twice, not because the number was complicated, but because Stephanie had arranged the meeting as if they were about to save her. "Does that include the land?" Aaron asked. Luke answered quickly. "The company has always treated the land as a corporate asset. That isn't what I asked. We're offering to purchase whatever passed to you through the will." "So, no?" Connor leaned forward. "Aaron, $40,000 is more than the building's worth in its current condition." "Then why buy it?" "To clean up the site," Luke said. "For what?" "Future operations." "What operations?" "We don't have a final plan." Catherine had been right. Aaron shifted her attention to Connor. "Is the company moving freight back there?" "No," Connor said. "Not freight." Luke's head turned. Connor continued anyway. "The area's changing. If we cleared the structure, we could hold the parcel until the right project came along. You said there wasn't a final plan. There isn't. But you've discussed a project. Every company discusses options." Stephanie stepped in. "The point is, you get enough money for school and a decent apartment. You don't have to worry about inspectors or contractors. And Boyd Freight gets the whole site." Luke's patience began to thin. "The company already has the site. Then why is the offer from you and Stephanie?" The page named Luke and Stephanie Boyd as purchasers, not Boyd Freight Storage. Connor looked at the paper. Luke closed the folder halfway. "It's easier to move quickly with a private purchase." "Who's 40,000? "Ours," Stephanie said. The answer carried more strain than pride. Aaron watched her smooth the corner of the document. Stephanie's nails were freshly done, but one had broken low on her right hand. "Why not let the company buy it?" Aaron asked. Luke's voice hardened. "Because I'm trying to keep legal costs down." "No, you're trying to own whatever Dad gave me before the estate finishes checking title." Connor leaned back. Stephanie's hand stopped moving. Luke looked at Aaron as if someone had been teaching her the wrong material. "What have you found? Why does everyone keep asking me that?" "Because last week you didn't want the warehouse. Now you have engineers and mechanics crawling through it. I wanted to understand what I inherited, and it needs work." Luke waited. Aaron let the silence stay empty. Connor reached for his water. "The company's had a difficult year," he said. Luke's eyes flashed. "That isn't relevant." "It's exactly relevant," Aaron said. Connor set the glass down. Fuel costs had risen. 2 large customers had moved their storage contracts to a national operator. A new warehouse near the port had opened late and over budget. None of that meant Boyd Freight was failing, but it meant the company needed cash and stronger numbers before renewing its main credit line. Luke had spent months telling lenders that the old Uibor site gave the company flexibility. He hadn't pledged it as collateral. Jack had refused that while alive. But Luke had treated the parcel as a future company asset in internal projections and meetings. If operations tightened further, they could clear the warehouse, lease the land, or bring in a development partner. The mansion made that pressure personal. Jack had owned it without debt. Luke and Connor now held it together, but taxes, insurance, staffing, and repairs came from the estate only during a limited settlement period. After that, they would pay. Connor wanted to sell. Luke refused. Selling the Bayshore house would look like retreat. Luke had moved into Jack's office, taken Jack's title at the company, and begun receiving calls from people who expected him to be Jack. He needed the house to remain part of that picture. He needed the business to remain strong enough to support it. The Uibor parcel was the margin he thought Jack had left him. Aaron's ownership of the building complicated demolition. Buying it privately for $40,000 would remove that complication. Later, Luke could lease the cleared site back to the company, or contribute the structure rights in exchange for a larger personal stake in any project. Stephanie knew all of this. She had urged him to make the offer before lawyers increased the price. She also knew their own finances were tight enough that $40,000 would come from selling investments she didn't want to sell. Still, she preferred one painful payment now to years of carrying a mansion and a company without the Uibor option. Connor hadn't intended to explain so much. Luke cut him off. "We are not discussing company finances outside the company. I'm a shareholder," Connor said. "Then act like one." "I am. You're handing her confidential information. She's our sister." The sentence surprised all three of them. Connor looked down. Aaron held Luke's gaze. "You thought Dad's will gave you the company, the mansion, and the land once you got my building out of the way." Luke's face remained controlled. "I think Dad meant the business assets to stay with the business." Even if he didn't say that, he spent his life building one operation. He didn't intend to cut holes through it on the way out. Then why leave me the warehouse? A mistake. Guilt? Sentiment? Pick one? What guilt? Luke's mouth tightened. "You were always the one Dad worried he hadn't done enough for. So, you think he gave me a ruined building to feel better? I think he expected us to handle the practical part. By buying it for $40,000, by keeping you from drowning in it." Stephanie pushed the agreement closer. "This offer isn't meant to insult you. It's meant to be signed quickly." "Yes," Stephanie said. Luke looked at her. She continued with the tired honesty she'd avoided until then. "Yes, quickly. The longer this sits open, the more it costs everyone. We have estate lawyers, company lawyers, insurance questions, the house, the credit renewal, and now contractors at a condemned property. We can't keep carrying uncertainty." Aaron understood then. Luke wasn't moving against the warehouse because he knew what Jack had hidden. He was moving because he didn't know. He'd built his plans on the belief that every useful Boyd asset would come under his control. The one piece left to Aaron threatened more than a balance sheet. It threatened the role he'd already stepped into. She slid the agreement back. "No." Luke didn't touch it. "You haven't had legal advice. That's why I'm not signing. We can increase the offer later if an appraisal supports it." "No." "Aaron, stop making decisions to prove you can. I'm making one because I can." Connor's chair scraped softly against the patio. Stephanie closed the folder. Luke stood. "If the title search confirms company ownership of the underlying parcel, this offer disappears. Then you won't lose anything. You will." Aaron rose and slipped Isabella's ring more firmly onto her finger. "Don't enter the warehouse without my permission. If company property is inside, I have a right to retrieve it. Send a list to Martin. I don't need permission to protect Boyd Freight. You need mine to open my gate." Luke looked at her for a long moment. Then he gathered the papers and walked into the house. Stephanie followed, carrying the folder. Connor remained by the pool. "He really does think he's protecting the company," he said. Aaron looked through the glass doors at Luke, standing in Jack's kitchen. "I know. That doesn't make him wrong about everything." "No? Are you going to tell me what you found?" "Not yet." Connor nodded as if he'd expected that. When Aaron reached the driveway, he called after her. "Get your own lawyer, not Martin. Martin has all three of us to deal with." It was the first useful thing either brother had given her since Jack died. Aaron got into her car, and searched for Tampa real estate attorneys before Luke could change Connor's mind. The first 3 firms offered appointments 2 weeks away. The fourth connected her to Nathan Olson. His office occupied the 2nd floor of a brick building near the Hillsborough River. The waiting room had 4 chairs, a coffee machine, and no view worth charging extra for. Aaron liked it immediately. Nathan wore a navy suit that had been pressed that morning and wrinkled since. He listened without interrupting while Aaron explained the will, the lift, the 2 boxes, and Luke's offer. She placed copies of the deed and trust papers on his desk. The originals remained with Catherine. Nathan read Jack's letter last. Who else has seen these? Timothy, Catherine, Mira, and me. Did the engineer read them? No. She saw the case opened, but she left us alone with the papers. Your brothers? No. Martin Hale? Not yet. Nathan set down the letter. Good. Aaron had expected more excitement. That's all? No. That's the first useful thing. He examined the recorder's stamps with a magnifying glass. He checked the notary information on the trust amendment and made notes beside several dates. These look consistent, he said. Looking consistent isn't proof. How do we prove them? We start where paper can't argue. County records. The Hillsborough County records showed Walter Boyd taking title to the parcel in 1971. They showed the property passing through Walter's estate to Jack in 2003. They also showed Jack transferring it into the Boyd Legacy Land Trust in 2009. Boyd Freight Storage appeared nowhere in the ownership chain. Nathan turned his monitor toward Aaron. Your grandfather acquired the land 27 years before the company was incorporated. So, Luke can't say it was always company property. He can say it. He can't make the dates agree. What about the amendment? That wasn't recorded. Is that bad? Not necessarily. Private trust amendments often aren't. The county record shows the trust owns the parcel. The private papers determine who controls the trust after Jack's death. And that's me. If the amendment is valid, she sat straighter. You just said it looked valid. I said it looks consistent. We verified the notary, the witnesses if there were any, Jack's authority to amend, and whether a later amendment replaced it. What if there is another one? Then we deal with it. Nathan's calm annoyed her until she understood it wasn't doubt. It was how he kept one fact from leaning on another before either was ready. He called the attorney whose Clearwater address appeared on Catherine's certified mail receipt. The attorney had retired, but his former office maintained archived client files. The archive search would take 2 days. Nathan then called Martin Hale with Aaron's permission. Martin confirmed that Jack had told him the North 13th Street property involved separate title arrangements. Jack hadn't given him the trust amendment or named its beneficiary. Martin had assumed another attorney was handling the land. Did he mention capacity concerns? Nathan asked. Aaron sat across the desk, listening to Nathan's half of the call. No illness, medication changes, memory problems. Nathan wrote something. Thank you. Please preserve the complete estate file and all correspondence concerning the warehouse. After he hung up, Aaron asked, why did you ask about his memory? Because the amendment was signed 7 months before his death, benefits one child, and surprises the other 2. He died of a heart attack. That doesn't stop someone from arguing he wasn't thinking clearly. He was working every day. Then we collect proof of that before anyone asks. Nathan gave her a list. Jack's calendar from April, company emails, medical records if the estate would release them, the notary's journal, Timothy's invoice and work records, Catherine's certified mail receipt, any photograph showing Jack at the warehouse during the work. This is a lot for one document. It's a valuable document. How valuable? That's another question we answer with someone else's opinion. On the second day, the Clearwater Archive found its file. Nathan invited Aaron, Catherine, and Timothy to his office for the call. A records manager appeared by video and held each scanned page near the camera. The file contained Jack's written instructions, a draft amendment, the final signed amendment, and a letter acknowledging receipt. The final copy matched the one from the lift cavity. The notary was still active. Her journal showed Jack appearing in person with Florida identification on the April date printed on the document. Timothy produced a service invoice from the same week. It listed 4 hours of pit maintenance, concrete repair, and control panel work. Jack had signed it. Catherine provided the mailing receipt. Nathan placed the papers in date order across his conference table. March, Aaron turns 18, he said. April 4th, Jack asks for the original trust file. April 9th, the attorney prepares the amendment. April 12th, Jack signs before the notary. April 15th, the office receives and accepts it. April 18th, Timothy completes the compartments. Then Dad kept the originals until the floor was ready, Aaron said. That's what the sequence suggests. Is it enough? It's an unbroken chain. We still obtain certified county copies, but yes, this is the lever. Timothy looked at the papers. Jack would hate being called a lever. He hid a deed under an elevator, Nathan said. He understood leverage. Catherine almost smiled. Nathan prepared a notice for the county records. It didn't name Aaron as beneficiary. It stated that Jack had died and that the Boyd Legacy Land Trust remained the title holder under its private governing documents. Recording it would prevent anyone from quietly presenting Boyd Freight as the owner. It would also make the separate trust impossible to ignore during a title search. Once this is filed, Luke will know, Nathan said. He already thinks I found something. He doesn't know what. Aaron read the notice. What happens if we wait? The company may sign a contract it has no authority to sign. Someone may seek a demolition approval based on inaccurate ownership information. Waiting preserves surprise. Filing preserves the property. She thought of Jack's letter. Don't let anybody turn urgency into permission. File it. Nathan sent the notice to the county that afternoon. The next morning, a certified copy arrived electronically with a recording number and timestamp. The land still stood in the trust's name. Aaron's amendment gave her the authority behind it. For the first time since the will reading, the thing she held wasn't only a clue or a private promise. It was a record another person could verify without believing her first. Nathan ordered a professional appraisal. He also contacted a title company that had no relationship with Boyd Freight. Its examiner checked the same chain and issued a preliminary report. No deed transferred the parcel to the corporation. No mortgage placed it under a company loan. No recorded lien gave Luke control. The title company listed one owner, Boyd Legacy Land Trust. Nathan handed Aaron the report in a plain white folder. Keep this copy away from the warehouse, he said. Everything important in my life is now being kept away from the thing I own. That's temporary. How temporary? Depends on your brother. The first outside call came before the appraisal was finished. Gabrielle Arnold ran a historic preservation development firm in Tampa. Her company had been studying several connected parcels near the Ybor waterfront for a market, workshop, and small business project. She'd assumed the old Boyd warehouse belonged to Boyd Freight because the company name remained painted across one wall. The newly recorded trust notice changed that assumption. Gabrielle didn't know who benefited from the trust. She called Boyd Freight first, asking whether the company still had authority to discuss a long-term lease. Luke returned her call within 9 minutes. Nathan learned about it because Gabrielle's attorney then contacted the number on the recorded notice. They want a meeting with whoever controls the trust, Nathan told Aaron. They were sitting at the warehouse on folding chairs while Timothy tested the pit pump. Aaron held the phone on speaker. Do they want to buy it? She asked. Gabrielle mentioned a lease, preservation tax credits, public access. She was careful not to quote a number. What did you tell her? That authority is under review and no meeting will happen until title is secure. Does she know it's me? No. Keep it that way. Timothy shut off the pump. Why? Aaron looked toward the repaired roof covering. If she knows, Luke knows. Nathan answered quietly. Luke already knows the company doesn't hold title. That evening, the appraisal arrived. The warehouse structure contributed little in its current condition. The land did not. Nearby redevelopment, waterfront access, parcel size, and future commercial use placed the property's estimated market value near $4,800,000. Aaron read the number at the work table where she'd opened the case. It seemed unrelated to the rust around her. Timothy leaned over her shoulder. That's a lot of roof repairs. It's also a way out, Nathan said through the phone, if you want one. Aaron looked at the lift. The easy decision would be to sell before Luke could challenge anything. The money would remove the leaking roof, the rented room, and every immediate fear. It would also turn Jack's promise into a bank balance and leave someone else controlling the locks. I'm not selling today, she said. Today is the only day I asked about. Headlights moved across the warehouse windows. A company vehicle stopped outside the gate. Luke got out alone. He held a copy of the recorded trust notice in one hand. Aaron slid the appraisal into its folder, but didn't hide it. Luke approached the locked gate. "Open this," he said. "No." He raised the notice. "You filed against company property. The county says it isn't company property." "Who's Nathan Olson?" "My lawyer." Luke looked past her at Timothy, the open lift gate, and the work lights around the pit. "What was under that car?" Aaron stood on her side of the chain. "Proof?" Luke gripped the chain. "Proof of what?" That Dad made a separate decision. "Let me see it." "No, if you found company records, you're withholding corporate property. If you think that, have your lawyer call mine. I'm talking to you as your brother. You came in a company vehicle and brought a county filing." His eyes moved to the appraisal folder. "What's that? Something else for your lawyer to ask mine about?" Luke stepped back from the gate. "This is exactly why Dad shouldn't have split the site. He didn't. You don't know what he intended." Aaron rested one hand on the chain. "I know what he signed." Luke looked at her for several seconds. Then he folded the notice, returned to his vehicle, and drove away without another word. The probate petition arrived 6 days later. It ran 34 pages. Boyd Freight Storage joined Luke as a petitioner. Connor signed a statement supporting the company's claim that the warehouse site had always functioned as a corporate asset. Their lawyers asked the court to pull the property back into Jack's estate, invalidate the trust amendment, and distribute the parcel in a way consistent with what they called Jack's long-established business plan. They also alleged undue influence. Aaron read that phrase at Nathan's conference table. "What does that mean here?" "They're suggesting you caused Jack to change the trust for your benefit." "I didn't know the trust existed." "We'll say that. They know I didn't know. They know what they can prove, and what they're willing to allege aren't always the same." Nathan turned to Connor's signed statement. Connor didn't claim Aaron had pressured Jack. He said Jack had been grieving, increasingly secretive, and emotionally burdened by Isabella's death. He described the amendment as inconsistent with the way Jack had managed company property. "He signed this?" Aaron asked. "Yes." "Can grief last 13 years when it helps your court filing?" Nathan looked at her over his glasses. "That's a better question for the hearing." Luke's affidavit went further. He said Jack's judgment had declined during his final year. He pointed to the warehouse bequest as evidence of confusion, arguing that no rational business owner would separate a condemned structure from the supposedly corporate land beneath it. He didn't mention that the land had never belonged to the corporation. He didn't mention his private $40,000 offer. Nathan added the purchase agreement and liability waiver to Aaron's evidence file. What happens now? We answer. Then the judge schedules a hearing. How long? Possibly months. Aaron looked toward the window. The building can't sit open for months. It won't. You keep stabilizing it. You document every dollar. Luke's lawyers sent letters to Mira and Timothy demanding records. Timothy delivered his invoices to Nathan and refused to speak with anyone else. Mira provided her report, including the line stating the structure was neglected, but not in immediate danger of collapse if the recommended safeguards remained in place. Catherine gave a sworn statement about the accounting history. She did not yet describe Isabella's promise in detail. Nathan wanted that heard directly, where Luke's lawyers couldn't shorten it into one convenient sentence. The court set an initial status hearing for late March. Aaron turned 19 4 days before it. She spent her birthday morning at the warehouse, helping Elena replace damaged landing gate rollers. Denise left a small cake in the refrigerator, with Aaron's name written in blue icing. Catherine gave her a fireproof document bag. Timothy gave her a new adjustable wrench and complained when she hugged him. Luke sent a text at 9 that night. Happy birthday. This can still be settled privately. Aaron didn't answer. The status hearing took place in a county courtroom with rows of wooden benches and fluorescent lights that flattened every face. It wasn't the final hearing. No witnesses would testify. The judge would identify the dispute, set deadlines, and decide what needed to be preserved until the evidence could be heard. Luke arrived with 2 corporate lawyers. Stephanie sat behind him. Connor came separately and chose a seat at the far end of their row. Nathan placed one slim binder on the table in front of Aaron. The original deed and trust amendment remained secured elsewhere. Today, we listen, he told her. They're going to say things that aren't true. Yes. And we don't correct them? We correct what affects today's order. We let them commit to the rest. Luke's lead attorney stood when the case was called. He described the warehouse parcel as an integral Boyd Freight asset, accidentally isolated by defective estate planning. He said Jack had paid taxes and maintenance through corporate accounts. He said Erin had discovered unrecorded papers in a building she controlled after Jack's death. Then he questioned the papers themselves. "We have not been permitted to inspect the alleged originals," he said. "We don't know their condition, source, or authenticity." Nathan remained seated. The lawyer continued. "Our concern is heightened by the respondent's immediate engagement of contractors who disturbed the elevator shaft where these documents were supposedly found." Erin felt Nathan's hand touch the edge of her binder. Wait. The attorney said Jack had been mourning his wife for years. He said Erin had occupied a uniquely dependent position as Jack's youngest child. He suggested she may have influenced him through guilt, whether deliberately or not. Luke watched the judge, not Erin. He believed the story would sound reasonable if it were said calmly enough. The judge asked one question. Was Ms. Boyd aware of the trust amendment before her father's death? The corporate attorney paused. "We don't yet know the full extent of her knowledge." Erin did know. She knew exactly when she learned, exactly where she stood, and exactly who had been present. Luke had chosen not to ask before signing his affidavit. Nathan rose. "My client had no knowledge of the trust, the amendment, or the parcel's separate title until after the will reading. We have dated photographs, electronic records, third-party witnesses, and an authenticated drafting file supporting that timeline." "Have the originals been preserved?" the judge asked. "Yes." "Has opposing counsel been offered controlled inspection?" "We offered 3 dates after receiving reasonable handling conditions." "They haven't selected one." The judge looked toward Luke's table. His lawyer began. "Those conditions included an independent document examiner." "That sounds reasonable," the judge said. The first small certainty left Luke's face. The judge ordered both sides to preserve all property and records. No documents could be altered or removed. The company had to produce its historical ledgers, insurance schedules, loan applications, and communications about the warehouse. The evidentiary hearing was set for April. Outside the courtroom, Gabrielle Arnold waited near the elevators with her attorney. She recognized Luke from a business photograph and approached him first. "Mr. Boyd, I'm Gabrielle Arnold. We spoke about the North 13th Street site." Luke glanced toward Erin. "This isn't a good time. I understand. I only need to know whether Boyd Freight can still discuss a preservation lease. That depends on the court." Gabrielle looked at Nathan. "Does your client represent the trust?" Nathan answered carefully. "My client has an interest being reviewed by the court." Gabrielle didn't know what kind of interest. Erin was named in the will as owner of the condemned building. That much appeared in the probate file. The trust's private beneficiary remained undisclosed. "If the warehouse is demolished, our interest changes," Gabrielle said. "The historic structure is central to our project." Luke's expression hardened. "The structure may not be safe enough to retain. Mira Patel's report says it can be stabilized. You've seen the report? It was attached to a public filing." Luke looked back toward his lawyers. Gabrielle handed Nathan a card. "I'd like to attend the evidentiary hearing." "It's public," Nathan said. Luke walked away before the elevator arrived. Connor remained near the courtroom doors. He watched Gabrielle speak with Nathan, then followed Luke without saying anything to Erin. 2 days later, city inspectors arrived at the warehouse. Erin was helping Timothy clean the old lift motor when 3 vehicles stopped outside. A building official, a code officer, and a demolition contractor entered through the gate after showing identification. Luke came behind them with a corporate attorney. Nathan was still driving from his office, so Erin called him and kept the line open in her pocket. The building official held a city file. "We received a request for emergency review based on the standing condemnation." "From who?" "Boyd Freight." Luke stood near the loading door. "The company has a duty to protect neighboring operations." "You don't own the neighboring operations," Erin said. "They're 3 blocks away. The public still passes this property." The inspectors examined the roof, loading wall, upper floor, and lift shaft. Erin gave them Mira's report. Timothy showed the completed shoring and the locked electrical disconnect. The demolition contractor measured the entrance and took photographs of the lift. "Why is he measuring anything?" Erin asked. The building official kept reading. "We have to evaluate all options. The court ordered the property preserved. Documents were ordered preserved," Luke's attorney said. "Not a hazardous structure, Nathan's voice came through Aaron's phone. "Don't argue with him. Ask the official to note our objection." Aaron repeated it. The official wrote something in the file. Luke walked with the group through every room. He described falling plaster, exposed wiring, and years of city notices. He didn't mention the new roof covering, working drainage, or steel supports unless an inspector asked. At the lift, the code officer looked into the dry pit. "The car was moved? Under license supervision," Timothy said. Luke pointed toward the floor plate. "That concrete was disturbed after Jack Boyd died." "No," Timothy said. "I poured it while he was alive." Luke's lawyer stepped closer. "Can you prove that?" "Yes." Timothy didn't offer the invoice. Aaron understood what Nathan meant. Let them commit. The city issued its decision the following Monday. The warehouse's existing condemnation was advanced to emergency demolition status. The permit wouldn't become active immediately. Interested parties had 10 days to obtain a court order stopping it. After that, the contractor could enter, disconnect utilities, remove the cargo lift, and bring down the structure. Luke's company had agreed to pay the demolition cost. Nathan read the notice in the warehouse office while Aaron stood beside the old desk. "He knows the papers aren't under the lift anymore," she said. "He also knows the trust gives you the land only if the amendment survives. If the building disappears first, your inheritance under the will disappears with it." Can he do this? He can try. April's hearing is 3 weeks away. We aren't waiting 3 weeks. Nathan opened his briefcase and removed a blank emergency motion. "We ask for an injunction tomorrow. Outside, orange demolition marks had already been painted on the gate. Luke had signed his name beneath the company authorization. This time, he had left nothing for Connor to explain. The emergency hearing began 3 days later. The judge had combined the demolition request with the ownership dispute. Luke's lawyers objected, then withdrew the objection when the judge reminded them that Boyd Freight had created the 10-day deadline. Every relevant person was in the room. Luke sat with the corporate lawyers. Stephanie sat behind him. Connor took the last seat in their row. Gabrielle sat near the aisle with her attorney. Nathan began with the county records. He placed the certified 1971 deed on the evidence screen. Walter Boyd acquired the parcel personally, he said, 27 years before Boyd Freight Storage existed. The next document showed Walter's estate transferring the land to Jack in 2003. The third showed Jack placing it into the private land trust in 2009. No company appeared anywhere in the chain. Luke's lawyer argued that Boyd Freight had paid expenses and maintained the site. Catherine took the witness chair. Every company payment was recorded as an advance to Jack, she said. The ledgers were available to Luke. Yet employees treated the warehouse as corporate property. They treated it as a place the company used. Isn't that the same thing in practice? No, renting an apartment doesn't make you the landlord. A few people shifted on the benches. Nathan asked about Isabella. Catherine looked at Aaron before answering. Jack told me he'd promised his wife that Aaron would always have ground of her own, somewhere nobody could vote her out of. Luke lowered his eyes. Connor stared at the table. Timothy testified next. He described Jack directing the work in April, 7 months before his death. He produced the signed invoice, dated photographs, and the service log showing the relay panel box and pit repair. Was Jack confused? Nathan asked. He corrected my concrete measurement by 1/2 inch. Was he clear about why he wanted the compartments? He said the company had too many keys, and Aaron needed one thing that opened only for her. The trust attorney's archive file completed the sequence. The active notary confirmed Jack had appeared in person, understood the amendment, and signed without Aaron present. Then Nathan displayed the amendment. Gabrielle leaned forward when Aaron's full name appeared. That was the moment she learned who controlled the trust. Luke's attorney stood. This remains an unnatural division of a family business. The judge looked at him. The parcel was never owned by the family business. It was operated as one asset. Use doesn't erase title. The attorney tried the argument once more. Jack had acted from grief. Aaron had benefited from guilt. The hidden paper suggested secrecy. Nathan answered with Jack's letter. Secrecy from the corporation isn't secrecy from the law. The deed was recorded. The trust was recorded. The amendment was properly executed. Jack Boyd hid the originals because he feared the precise confusion now being presented as ownership. The judge took 20 minutes. Aaron waited with Isabella's ring held beneath her thumb. When the judge returned, she denied the company's petition. She found no evidence of undue influence. incapacity, defective execution, or corporate ownership. She confirmed the trust amendment and Aaron's authority as sole beneficiary. She also stopped the demolition immediately. The structure and cargo lift are not to be disturbed without Ms. Boyd's written approval, she said. Boyd Freight has no ownership interest in the parcel. Luke didn't move. The judge looked directly at him. Mr. Boyd, your company's financial expectations do not create property rights. Outside the courtroom, reporters waited near the elevators. One online story appeared that afternoon under a headline Aaron wished had used fewer words. She closed the page before reading the comments. Gabrielle found her in Nathan's office the next morning. She brought plans instead of an offer sheet. A sale would be simpler, Gabrielle said. I'm not interested in simple if it removes me. Then we build the agreement around your ownership. They spread drawings across the conference table. Gabrielle proposed a long-term partnership. Aaron would contribute use of the warehouse, not the land itself. Gabrielle's firm would arrange restoration financing and preservation credits. The main floor would become a market hall with stalls affordable to local food vendors, repair shops, and small makers. Upper rooms would hold offices and workshops. What happens to the lift? Aaron asked. Gabrielle looked at the plans. My engineers marked it for removal, then mark it again. Timothy's inspection showed the lift could be restored. It needed new controls, cables, brakes, gates, and most of its wiring. The original car and guide rails could remain. Gabrielle looked toward him. Can you certify it? When it's safe. How long? If nobody rushes me, less time than if they do. She crossed out remove, then it stays. Restoration began in June. Aaron didn't watch from a clean office. She spent mornings at the warehouse and took evening classes. She learned which bricks could be saved, how old windows were numbered before removal, and why Timothy became personally offended by cheap electrical switches. The roof came off in sections. Rotten boards gave way to sound decking. The loading door was rebuilt. Workers cleaned the painted Boyd Freight name from one wall, but left a faint outline in the brick. Aaron chose not to erase it completely. Connor visited in August. He stood near the lift while Elena installed a new landing control. I withdrew my statement, he said. I heard. I should have read it more carefully before signing. You read it. Connor nodded. Yes. That was the first honest apology he could manage. Aaron didn't rescue him from it. You can visit, she said. You don't get keys, you don't speak for the property, and you don't bring company lawyers through my gate. All right? Luke gets the same terms. He may not come. That's his decision. The lift passed inspection the following spring. Timothy let Aaron press the button. The motor engaged with a low, steady sound. The car rose from the first floor without shaking. At the upper landing, the gate opened cleanly. Timothy rested one hand against the wooden car wall. Your grandfather would complain about the speed. Would Dad? Your father would complain about the invoice. The market hall opened in May. Vendors filled the main floor with bread, coffee, flowers, repaired furniture, printed shirts, and jars of sauce stacked in bright rows. The old loading area became a covered public entrance. The cargo lift carried tables and supplies between floors. A small brass plaque beside it read Jack Boyd Market Hall. Luke arrived after the opening remarks. Stephanie came with him. Connor was already helping a vendor move boxes. Luke stopped at the plaque. The lift looks good, he said. Timothy did good work. I know. He looked across the crowded floor. You kept the whole thing. Yes. I was wrong about the title. You were wrong about more than the title. Luke accepted that without argument. Aaron didn't forgive him there. She didn't ask him to leave either. You're welcome when the hall is open, she said. The office and records stay private. He nodded. It wasn't a restored family. It was a boundary both of them understood. By sunset, the vendors had closed their stalls. Gabrielle left with the last contractor. Timothy rode the lift once more to listen for a sound nobody else could hear. Then Aaron locked the public doors. If stories about young people rebuilding a life after family betrayal matter to you, subscribe and return for the next inheritance story. Upstairs, Aaron had made one former office into a small apartment. Isabella's ring rested in a dish beside the bed. Jack's letter stayed framed near the desk, away from sunlight. Aaron walked to the railing and looked down into the quiet market hall. Warm lights crossed the old brick. The repaired cargo lift waited at the first floor, its gate closed, ready for morning. Rain began tapping against the new roof. Nothing leaked. Aaron turned off the last light and went home.